everyone. Welcome to the main event. My name's Joe Tillman, and today is Monday, June 12th, 2023. Hope you guys and gals had a fantastic weekend. Mine was so-so. Involved some ceiling leaks at a location other than the studio in the home, which is the only saving grace. But hey, you know what? You get through it. But overall, good weekend. Spent it with mail order and our dog Masha. And let's see what's going on. There's not, I was doing some research for today's show. Not a whole lot going on in the world of hair loss. I am working on some ideas and some contacts to get some more people in here for interviews and to answer your questions live. And I'm not just talking about hair restoration doctors that are hair transplant mentor members. So stay tuned for that. If you're not subscribed, do subscribe to the channel and make sure that all notifications are enabled by ringing the bell so that when those and other live streams are set up, you will get notifications for that. So very important if you like that kind of information. Before we get busy, if you don't know who I am or what I'm doing behind this microphone in front of this camera talking to you, my name is Joe Tillman, and I am a 20-year industry veteran in the hair transplant business. And what does that mean? I always feel weird talking about that because, number one, 20 years is a long time. And it's nothing to brag about. Like, I'm not bragging about that because I don't think it's anything to brag about. I think it's the only thing that I think is worth noting is that I've persevered through this industry, which is a hellacious industry. If someone were, in fact, if someone were to ask me if I felt it was worthwhile for them to get involved in the hair transplant industry on any level, I would say no. And that goes from being a consultant on up to being or a technician or what have you, even a receptionist at a clinic on up to being a doctor. I would say no, unless it's very specific circumstances or a situation, because I wouldn't want people to have to go through this life unless they have a very strong fortitude about who they are and their ethics and their morals, things like that. A lot of people don't. A lot of people are easily manipulated. They're easily tempted to do things that, if they step back and thought about it, maybe they wouldn't be doing. It's a dirty industry. And I've talked about it many times at various, of various degrees of detail. And who knows? Maybe I will do a tell-all about my experiences and the people that I've had these experiences with. You guys would be shocked. You guys would be mortified. You would question if you ever had surgery, how you could go through and have surgery and not learn these things, not find these things out. It's pretty shocking. And I'm talking about doctors that are well known that are not who you think they are. And I'm not going to get into names and stuff like that or any sort of innuendo. I'm just telling you, it is a crazy industry. It is a disgusting industry. And if you have any sort of moral background and you can still forge out an existence in this industry and not violate your own boundaries, then you are a special person. So there's that. But anyway, before I got to the hair transplant industry, still am, a hair transplant patient. And what actually got me into this industry was being a repair patient, where I had 2 bad hair transplants in my early 20s and had 2 wide donor scars, lost all my hair except for the grafts that were almost like plugs that were sticking out of the front of my scalp. And so I jokingly refer to them as ant legs on growth hormone, because that's what they look like. When I have that visual of actual ant legs, it's not far off the mark. But anyway, let me just make sure the audio is working here. I can't see my screen. Yeah, let's see. Oh, got a note here. Could you please wish Amira a happy birthday? Amira, happy birthday to you. I hope it is a fantastic day. All the best to you. And I hope it's the beginning of the rest of the year where it's just as good as your birthday today. How's that? Anyway, so where was I? Industry, who I am. Yeah, so if you like hair transplant subject matter and hair loss subject matter, and you want to learn about the ins and outs of surgery and what you need to be aware of, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and make sure you ring the bell for all notifications, because I do this show daily, and I try to come up with different subject matter every day. And I do, I used to, I used to upload videos, but I'm starting on that again, where I'm talking about clinics I work with. I got a great video coming up that is in the final stages of edit, where I'm going to be showing some extreme hair loss cases that have been turned around shockingly well. Some of them you've seen before, and it's more like an update on those cases, so you can see where they are now. And there's two cases in particular that are phenomenal as far as the final outcome. And you guys know the clinic. I'm not going to say who it is, but it's obviously a hair transplant member clinic. It's pretty exciting. And then I've got another one for another clinic I'm working on, and a third one I'm going to be starting on. But I'm also going to be restarting the hair transplant class series, because I do have some subject matter I'd like to get across to you guys I think is important. I've had a lot of requests for that, so please bear with me. That will be coming. I can't say soon because my life is kind of crazy right now, but it is in the pipeline. It is being planned, and I might even script it out, because I normally don't script these things out. I just have an outline in my head of what I want to talk about, and I literally freeball it the whole way through my videos. I don't write anything down. So anyway, so Broderbond60 just tuned in. Thought Joe was talking about the porn biz. No, not yet anyway. Let's see. So, so today's episode has to do with Matteo Lane. If you don't know who Matteo Lane is, he's an up-and-coming comic out of New York City. I follow him. I subscribe to his channel because I think he's quite talented. Now, the one critique, it's not even a critique, but he plays up some very, I'll say very easy stereotypes about his particular niche that he focuses on. But I think he's very talented. I think he's very funny. And yeah, so I do recommend that you guys look him up. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up one of his videos. He actually just released it. I think it was yesterday, maybe this morning. I woke up and found it in my feed, and I watched through it. I didn't watch the whole thing because it's a full set. It's a full concert that he does. He's in a bar or someplace, or a comedy club, but it's like an hour. So we're not going to go through the whole thing. But for the first bit, he's talking about not just hair loss, but he had a hair transplant. And he's talking about his experience. And the reason why I want to share this with you is I think he's got some, well, let's just get to it. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's see if I can pull this up here, right over here. Let's see, get that larger. There we go. Okay, so this is going to start off from the beginning. I'll try to stop it and make some commentary, because this is a reaction video about this situation. So let's bring it up over here. And there I am. Okay. Whoops. Let's get that one. We want to do this one. Okay. So I'm going to play this. Now, you guys let me know in the chat room if you can hear it.
Thank you. I got hair transplants. Look how quiet the room got. And now everyone is looking at my forehead. It is.
That's true. Like every time I'm in social situations with people that I don't know, at some sort of party or some sort of event that I've been invited to, it's like the subject invariably goes to what each of us does for a living, and it comes up, well, I'm in the hair transplant industry. I actually started saying I'm a YouTuber, but that, just to kind of get away from it, if I don't want to get into the subject, but that still leads to what I do, because I can't just say I'm a YouTuber, because then they're like, oh, really? Oh, okay. Oh, awesome. Never met a YouTuber before. What do you do on YouTube? Like, what do you talk about? It's like, oh, shit, you got to talk about it. Anyway, so... But once I mention what I'm doing, even without saying I've had a hair transplant, the first thing they do is look at my hairline. It's like it's unavoidable. So that's funny right off the bat.
Kind of embarrassing to admit, because I think with anyone who's losing their hair, by the way, they just grew in. Don't they look real? Yeah. I mean, it is real, but it's like a chia pet. It's like chia. But it takes a while for it to grow. It's like after 4 months, you just see like chip. So like right now I'm like, yeah, but I'm not, I haven't, the song's not done yet. So I was losing my hair, and anyone who's losing their hair knows it's kind of denial, like 10 years of denial. I'm just like, another bad haircut.
That's true. That's true. On the denial front, yes. But even what he's talking about with getting a bad haircut, it's like, yeah, I remember being in that situation where I would get a haircut that kind of exposed things a little bit more than I wanted, and it's like, well, it's the haircut's fault. It's the stylist's fault, not the fact that I'm continuing to lose more hair and my old bad work was being exposed. So I can relate to that. That's pretty funny.
Okay, and root beer to drink?
Shoot.
Actually, no.
Okay, hold on.
What?
Get through this.
I'm getting frozen root beer.
That's annoying.
It's so crazy. And I would do a lot to cover it up. I mean, it was getting really bad. I would have to grow my hair really long, and then I would straighten it. I would put Topic spray. You guys know what Topic spray is? Look at this room. Of course you do. Okay, so
And he's talking about Topic. That's amazing. Like, I've never heard anyone talk about it publicly. That's, some sort of... I guess we can call him a celebrity, but who's in the public eye, talking about Topic. I thought that was pretty interesting.
You know what I'm talking about. I put Topic spray, and basically when I get it into the shape a sculpture Michelangelo would blush at, then there's certain rules you have to follow. If it's a windy day, you don't leave the house. You just look out the window like, well, I'm sick today.
I know that. I've been there. I have been there. That's funny. And I know a lot of you are there now, and you've been there before, so I hope you can laugh at this, because that's hilarious.
The pool, that's a big one. Never putting your head under the water. Just sort of floating around. Like a gay alligator, just... Oh. No. You guys look like you're having fun. Bed, that's another one. But I'll get into bed with a guy, and they try and touch my hair. I'm like, yeah. So the thing is, as a gay guy, I'm very envious of hair. People with nice hairline. I can't tell if you're hot or you've got nice hair. And also, let me just say this. I do not think straight guys deserve nice hair. There, I said it. Thank you. Straight men do not deserve nice hair or nice asses. That is my rule. Oh, all these ex-football players walking around doing guys with nice butts, like, we love. I've been doing this for 13 years. I'm like, I'm just going to get it so I don't have to think about it anymore. Yeah. So this has been a good year. So I know. And I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it here in New York. I don't want to go to Turkey.
See, that tells me, like, he's done his research. Like, he knows... For someone to bring that up, like, he did his research, and there's some other things that he shares where I'll say this, I don't know how much research he did, but I can say, like, I did look into who he went to, which he doesn't talk about in this video. He did go to a good doctor. I tried to guess who it was, and I was close, but I didn't quite get it. But the guy did his research, and that to me is a huge win for him, because it obviously worked out. Like, his hair looks really good. I do have a critique that I will share that I think there's something lacking with his surgery as far as an approach. But overall, I like the result. I think the doc did a good job. So let's get back to it.
I just can't, I just seen all those pictures of those guys, hundreds of guys with their heads wrapped swollen like they're the alien from Mars Attacks. Like, I don't need to be going through customs and they're like, what did you bring back? Like, I want to be ugly at home. So I found a really good doctor. Just as a PSA, if you are thinking about getting it done, you should meet with more than one doctor. So I met with a bunch of doctors, and I really liked one. So we had our consultation a year ago, April of 2022. And, he was nice. It was very thorough, showing me what he's going to do. He asked a lot of lineage questions. His first question to me was, who else in your family is balding? And I said, no one. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, my older brother, full head of hair. My dad, full head of hair. And he goes, what about your mom's dad, your grandpa? And I said, without missing a beat, I go, my grandpa is a Mexican with a 1-inch forehead. His hairline starts here. He asked me a question that I didn't understand at first. He said, what kind of hairline do you want? Now, what he meant by that was, how much do you want to pay? Because you're paying per hair. Literally, the count.
See, I find that funny. No one else laughed. I think he meant it as a joke, but no one got it. But I got it. You guys got it. And I can say that in general, that's not why that question is asked. The question is asked by good doctors because they want to know where your mindset is. What is it that you're hoping to achieve? Because if you have an idea that is bizarre or way too aggressive or just not realistic, then the doctor's not going to make you happy. And he needs to know this or she needs to know this up front so that you guys are on the same page. Because last thing you want is to go and say, okay, well, I hate when people say this. I trust you to do what's best for me. No, screw that. You need to find out what's best for you. You need to talk about it and ask questions if you have a problem with it so that you can learn why it's best for you instead of just saying, just do it. So it's important why that question is asked. And I think it's funny what he says. Like what he meant to say is, how much are you willing to spend? No, that's not what he's saying. But that stuck out to me. I thought that was really funny as hair transplant humor. And no one laughed. But anyway, I hope you guys caught that.
The amount of hairs I got 2,700 grafts. I paid per hair. But they don't want to start the conversation that way. So they say, what kind of hairline do you want? Well, I didn't get it. So when he said that, I go, oh, I want to look like Scar, the gay lion from The Lion King. Yeah. Scar's gay, right? We agree on Scar being gay. An elephant graveyard. Okay, sure. That song, Be Prepared, was about douching. And yes. Okay. Yes. The amount of times I've been on my bathroom floor on a Friday night, prepare. Hyenas are here to kill us. They're like, we're here for anal.
Okay, so he goes off on some different subjects, but he talks about it more, but it's throughout the special, and it's almost an hour long, so I'm not going to jump around through that. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up and to do a reaction on this is because I love the fact that he's out there talking about this in more detail than I've heard anyone that is in entertainment talk about it. About doing their research and what was important and in the process. And Milk Drinker in the chat room says that John Cena was talking about topic. That's fine. I don't pay attention to John Cena, but it's rare that you get this kind of information from someone in the public eye, from someone in entertainment, and you sure as hell don't get it in a stand-up comedy routine like Matteo Lane just gave. And I thought it was hilarious, but it also gave some good information. And I think it's the kind of information that, there are people in the audience at that comedy club that were losing their hair. And of course, we'll say how many views are there on this video right now? There's like 60,000 views this morning when I saw it, but tens of thousands of people that saw this are also losing their hair, and so hopefully that gave them a little bit of insight insight into the fact that this isn't something where you just walk into a clinic and expect it to be whatever it is that you want. He says, don't just go to one clinic for a consultation. Visit multiple clinics. Great advice. Now, he probably stayed in New York because he said that he didn't want to have to travel, or he didn't want to go to Turkey because he wanted to be ugly at home, which I thought was pretty funny. He's talking about the recovery period if you don't get that. But I thought it was a good message, and I commend him for talking about this so publicly, where so few people in entertainment do. There have been a couple of people who have mentioned it, but I've never, and correct me if I'm like, maybe you guys have seen this, but I've never seen anyone in entertainment talk about their hair loss and their hair transplant surgery to deal with their hair loss as openly as this guy. And before I did the show today, or started the show today, I did look online to find if there's any reference to who he went to, and he talks about this a lot. Like he did a podcast 12 days, or was even 12, within 2 weeks of his surgery, just late last year. And he's got another comedy special on his channel where he's talking about this, something about being bald, coming out about being bald or something like that. But his case is one where he was about a Norwood 3 and he was covering it up. You can look at the thumbnail for this video, and you can see the hairstyle that he's got. He's actually covering up a Norwood 3 hairline. Maybe not quite a full Norwood 3, but it was definitely receding in the temples. And he talks about this later on. He talks about how he had this giant Dracula widow's peak, which it's not a widow's peak, but how his corners were receding. And that's what was so traumatic for him. And him talking about wind and staying inside, that's so many of you have gone through that and are going through that now, where you just don't go, like if it's bad weather, you're not going outside. I get it. Or if you're going outside, you're going outside with a hat. And I also looked for old photos of him, and you can see his hair loss, which isn't not terrible, but he's also covering it. You can see that hairline where it's kind of swooped over. If you know, you know. When you look at it, you're like, yeah, he's hiding it. But there's also some photos of him out there with a ball cap on, and he's hiding his hair loss. So anyway, so to critique what I see, otherwise it's a great hair transplant. It looks really good. And there's someone in the chat room, Milk Drinker, actually guessed, congratulations, well done, what my critique is. And the hairline is not very aggressive. It's strong. I think that the design is really good. It's hard to see the naturalness, but knowing who the doctor is, I don't expect it to not be natural looking. I would expect a natural appearance. And from what I can see, it does look pretty natural. It's hard to see on the video, but it does look natural. Nothing stands out. But what does stand out, to me anyway, is he doesn't have temple points. And they weren't created for him, which I think would have been, I don't think it's 100% necessary in this case, but it would have been better. Now, his hair, I think he said that his hair is kind of curly or wavy later on in his set. If you watch the full thing, if you watch this whole video, you'll see where he talks about that. That might have something to do with it, but I don't know how tight the curl is. If it's a very tight curl, then it's difficult to do that. If it's just a wave, then it shouldn't have been a problem. But it also might have been, his hair might be coarse. It's hard to see. But what I also noticed, and this is a good thing, is you can see the fade haircut that he's got. It's very short. It looks like it's almost to the skin, maybe a one guard at the very most before it starts to taper out into a longer length. There's zero evidence of surgery. I looked, and there are moments where he's turning his head to walk away from the camera to the other side of the stage or what have you. He doesn't just full on turn around to show it, but I couldn't see anything. And 2,700 grafts, it's obviously FUE. Those extractions would have been up on the sides at least somewhat. And so I think it's a really nice result. He's not 1 year out. I think he said he had the surgery in August of last year. So what is that? That's 10 months, I think. Was this June? July? Yeah. So 10 months, roughly 10 months ago. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you like seeing this kind of discussion, even if it's comedic about hair loss and hair transplant surgery? What do you think of his result? Do you agree with me about those temple points? Like, I think he's fine without it. It doesn't stand out to me, but I think it's also because his hair is so short along the bottom half of the bilateral donor zone and then in the occipital region. I think that helps to alleviate that issue aesthetically. So what do you guys think? Let me know. So yeah, but I wanted to share that with you. And Milk Drinker, I wish more famous guys would open up about their surgeries. I do too. Broderbone 60, apparently his surgeon skipped the temple points. Yep, exactly. But again, really good result. So he talks about who the doctor is. I'm not going to talk about the doctor. Like, I like the doctor. Oh, screw it. It's Dr. Carlos Wesley in New York. He did this surgery. He did a really good job. But the critique stands. I think that temple points would have been warranted, but there might be circumstances where that justify why they didn't do that. So anyway, that's that. So it is currently 3:33. I did get a little bit of a late start, but let's see, it's bring me back over here. There we go. But we will open the lines for phone calls. If you want to talk about this, if you want to talk about Matteo Lane and his hair transplant, or if you got any questions about hair loss or hair transplant surgery, medications, future treatments, anything like that, give me a call. The number is 1-833-563-4247. Here we go. That's quick. All right. Hey, you're on the main event. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Joe, it's Karen from HairBoutique, and I'm calling from Dallas, Texas.
Hey, Karen from HairBoutique, calling from Dallas, Texas. How are you, girl?
I'm great. Listen, first of all, I do have a really good question today related to hair loss, a male hair loss issue. But I first want to say that I love your show. I love the main event. I'm sorry I haven't been here more often. I've been trying to catch the show as much as possible. And I love the segment with the comedian, because I agree with you. I think it's really important that people can see real life examples. And I think that's great that you do that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And look, Karen, you've been a great supporter of me from the beginning. And you've been a great supporter of The Bald Truth on Fridays with Spencer Coburn. Really appreciate your support. And thank you for your insight on that and your point. So, and thanks for the call. Absolutely. How you doing?
I'm good, but I do have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so my partner, my life partner, he started losing his hair it started probably when he was 30. And when I first ran into him, I was already doing HairBoutique, and I already knew Spencer, had read the book, knew all about hair loss, et cetera. So I convinced him to see a doctor and get finasteride. Back then, he was probably in Norwood 3. And the finasteride did a really good job. He was taking 1 meg, and eventually he was able to order it from edrugstore.com, which I don't know if it's good or not, but it kept his hair pretty full. He's got a lot of diffuse thinning on top, and he's 75, so there's no way he's going to want to do a transplant at this point.
I'm sorry, he's what?
He's 75.
75, okay, got
years
it.
Old. Yeah. And there's no way he would want to do a transplant at this point. His hair looks nice. It's just thinning. And he's pretty happy with it. He wears it very short. There's mostly diffuse thinning on the top. Well, anyway, he's been taking the same edrugstore.com finasteride 1 meg a day for 20 years. 1 mil. I'm sorry, 1 mil. And it works. It has worked. Well, about 2 months ago, he started having massive diffusing. And he got his last prescription 6 months ago. So he asked me about it. He said, what is happening? And I said, I don't know. And we started, chatting about it. And I said, Spencer and Joe have talked about the fact that sometimes prescriptions that are, they're not what would you call it, a generic, maybe they change the formula. So my question is, I guess I have a couple. How do we know whether this is just aging has caught up with him? Because Spencer and you both talk about the fact that after a point, maybe it stops working no matter what you have. How do we know if it's not a change in the generic formula? How do we know if maybe you shouldn't just start taking 2 a day instead of 1?
Yeah.
I mean, any ideas?
Well,
is that a good question?
It's a very good question, Karen. Thank you. So, all right. There's a couple ways. Well, first off, we don't talk about how it stops working after time. The way that, and I get this fairly frequently, where people will call me up or not call me up, but they'll send messages. Even when I was working in clinic, I would get phone calls from patients saying, my finasteride stopped working, or my Propecia stopped working, my ProScar stopped. It's like,
Right.
okay, fine. And then and there's this rumor going, this urban myth going around the internet that finasteride only works for 5 years. I have no idea where that one came from, but the reality is, it doesn't just stop working. It's not like your body builds up a tolerance to finasteride, or it's not like your body builds up a resistance to finasteride. What happens is in many cases, you're not actually stopping the hair loss 100%. It's just slowing it to a crawl. And you don't really notice the progression of hair loss until it gets to a point where it's aesthetically impacted. It's a creep, if you will, where it takes a while for you to notice it. Just like with traditional hair loss, the idea is you lose up to 50% of your hair before you actually notice that you're losing your hair, which I don't entirely agree with, but it's in that same vein, that you don't notice it until it gets to a certain threshold. But that could be it. But you're talking about an actual noticeable increase in shedding.
Yes.
In just a very short period of time. Is that right?
Correct. 2 months.
Yeah.
And you know what, Joe? I don't know that you've ever covered this. Maybe you and Spencer have, and I just didn't catch it. But I don't, I was thinking, is edrugstore.com even a viable source for good finasteride? Could that be an issue?
I don't know. I don't know anything about online pharmacies, because there's so many of them. And it's something I'd like to look into, but it would take a lot of time, because I'd have to figure out how to work an angle into being able to get the information I need. That's something I can report on. Maybe I can do. I don't know. It's something. It's worth thinking about on my end, because I think it would be a very valuable and interesting piece of information for people to have, and not so much to look at who's reliable and who's not, but to look at how it works. Actually, as I think about it, talking it out, we're fleshing it out. Actually, I've always talked about how when you're dealing with someone like one of these big box stores, like say a Costco or Walmart,
correct,
they're putting out what's called a call to bid to suppliers or distributors or manufacturers of various products, not just pharmaceuticals, but all kinds of different stuff. Corporations do this. Government does this, like school systems and municipalities and all that kind of stuff. They'll put out a call to bid, and anyone and everyone that has that's on a list or sees the notice, they all submit their bids for whatever the product is, as long as it's within spec that's determined. All this stuff. I used to be in that business, and so what they'll do is they'll put out a call for bid on pharmaceuticals to supply all of their stores or regional stores, like in the Southwest and the Northeast and the Southeast, all this. or maybe nationwide or worldwide, what have you. It depends on the product. But in the case of pharmaceuticals, someone will win the bid, and they will supply whatever pharmaceutical that is for a given amount of time. It might be 6 months, it might be 1 year, and there are usually clauses that say, the company that's asking for all these bids, say Walmart or Costco, they can change at any time they want. So, and I say that because it's like, you really want to be able to get that bid. And so you keep your price as low as possible to get that bid, and you got to keep it as low as possible because they're constantly checking. Like they're checking the market to see if you're still giving them the best deal, and it might be a clause that's in there where they can see your books. It's getting pretty far down the rabbit hole, but that's how it works. And so when that time period, we'll just keep it pretty generic. When that contract expires at, say, 6 months or a year, then they'll put out another call to bid, and a different supplier or manufacturer might win the bid this time. And so they're not going to tell you when you come to pick up your finasteride that you're getting your finasteride from a different supplier.
Right.
So that is one of the issues, just one of the issues when you're dealing with generics. One generic may be fine. Like he may have been on the same generic for 10 years. And or a few different generics for 10 years, and they were all good enough to where, sure, it was helping him to maintain his hair. But then that one that comes through where maybe their standards of manufacturing aren't quite as high. And you got 2 months of tillage and effluvium for your partner and God knows how many other people. Or even that one if there is one generic that's got the bid for, say, 5 years, and they're an okay company, they can still have problems with their own suppliers that bring in the ingredients for them to mix, to compound, or their own process might not be as consistent as we'd want it to be if we got it from Organon, which is now the company that officially makes Propecia and Proscar, which is a spin-off from Merck Pharmaceuticals. So if anyone out there is looking at their box and it says Organon Proscar or Organon Propecia, that's still the real stuff. It's no longer going to be Merck. It's going to be Organon. But it's a spin-off of Merck. So anyway, that's a possible issue, okay? That's why Spencer and I always talk about how we're brand whores. Like, we stick with the original. Because if you stick with the original, then the issue of consistency is eliminated. The issue of, who's supplying it is eliminated. You want to keep consistency with your product. You want to keep consistency with your intake. You want to keep consistency across the board so that your result is consistent as well. If there's one break in that chain, then the whole thing falls apart. And that might be what's going on with your partner.
That's scary, isn't it, Joe? That somebody wouldn't know that?
It is scary. It's been talked about. I remember there was a special on 60 Minutes about this, where they were talking about a heart medication. And in hospitals, and I'm paraphrasing, it's very loose. It's been a while since I've even talked about this, but they're talking about, I think they're investigating the medications used in hospitals for maybe it's recovering cardiac patients, heart surgery, something like that. And they were, it was an antidepressant. And they're looking at the generics and finding out that the generics were, I forgot why, but basically in summary, it was like they're useless. And the patients that were being given these generics were being given something that wasn't actually what it was supposed to be, something crazy. And so the reason why these patients were still doing badly is because they weren't getting their actual medication, or the percentage of the actual medication in the pill that they were taking, the active ingredient, was greatly reduced from what it was supposed to be. something like that. It was just a massive inconsistency that was putting the patient at risk. And this was much more serious stuff than hair loss. And there might have been a cardiac component to that as well, like a cardiac patient. I have to look for that.
Okay.
I'm glad you asked, because I want to look at that again and refresh my memory on that. But the point is, yeah, it's not something that you can trust, unfortunately, 100%. Always question it. And if I were you, I would see if you can find a box from the supply that you're getting, say, a year ago, or the last supply that you got before you noticed this problem, and then look at what you got 2 months ago.
Right.
And compare
That's a good
them.
idea.
Yeah.
Or also just say, hey, maybe it's time to go back to the doctor, you know?
Well, there is that. Yeah, for sure. And maybe consider, instead of doing generic, just do the name brand. Get ProScar.
Right. Which you have to get, you have to get from a doctor, though, to get that, right?
Yes, you do. Yeah, you got to get a prescription for it. And the best way for them to write the prescription would be 5 milligram ProScar, and then to specifically write no generic substitutes. Because if they don't, then the pharmacy will try to give you the generic substitute. And even pharmacists, like, they're trained just to dispense medications. They're not even going to know if if there's an issue with generics versus name brand. They're going to tell you, oh, they're all the same. They're quote unquote bioequivalent, which is meaningless. It's actually meaningless. Yeah. And I've told this story where I had a patient once. He was the owner of a pharmacy chain here in Canada, in Eastern Canada, actually, not Western Canada. So it's not one of the big ones. In case any Canadians are listening to this, it's not London Drugs, it's not Shoppers. But anyway, this guy, he owned a small chain in Eastern Canada, and we were talking about this, and I brought up my concerns, and he said, "Oh no, you're absolutely right. They are not the same from one generic to the next, and from generic to name brand." And he brought up a Lipitor example. Lipitor, which is a it helps to fight cholesterol. Yeah. And he was saying that, and forgive me, I don't remember the exact number of patents, but he said there's like 36 or 37 patents for Lipitor to be sold as Lipitor. And once it became available as a generic, the number of patents that had to be, where the processes or the ingredients that went into the medication that were patented, only 13 of them had to be matched to be able to be labeled as bioequivalent and sold as a generic. So less than half is all that was needed. And he said it was an infuriating situation to be in the pharmacy business and to know all this stuff and to have any sort of morals, because selling people this stuff and telling people that this stuff is exactly the same is criminal, because it's not the same.
It is criminal.
Now obviously generics are great for a lot of people. Like I've said this before, I'll say it again. Generics are great for a lot of people. A lot of people swear by them. They have no problems with them, and that's fine. But my point has always been, look to the generic if that's what you're taking, and you're having some sort of problem that the generic is supposed to be addressing. That goes for hair loss. It goes for depression. It goes for any ailment or condition that you're taking medication for. If that condition comes back or recurs, look to your medication first and see if it's a generic, and work your way out from there.
Okay. Well, you know what, Joe? Even with, that was a great answer, by the way. Fantastic.
Thank you.
But even with the whole explanation of the pharmacy, think about like an e-store, like edrugstore.com. Like you said, you're going down the rabbit hole. Who knows where they're getting the drugs from and what they're doing, right?
Oh,
right?
Yeah. And that says nothing about the fact that there's this thing called counterfeit medication, you know?
Yeah.
That even the people that you're getting it from don't realize it's counterfeit.
Right.
You know, I remember reading a story about in the supplement business. If you're getting turmeric for its anti-inflammation properties, you get the capsule, and it's this burnt orange color powder inside that just so happens to resemble iron shavings. And guess what kind of counterfeit business there is when it comes to turmeric? Using ground up iron shavings. Yeah, because the orange color comes from the rust. That's actually a thing.
Terrible.
That's actually a thing. Obviously not widespread, but it's happened in the past.
Terrible.
So
Wow.
people will do anything they can to make a buck. You know?
Wow. Well, that was a really great answer. Thank you so much. I would call in more often, but I don't want to be on Robert Hellner's next caller list.
I know, right? No one wants to be that caller. No one wants to be that caller.
And
but
I only want to call when I have really good questions.
Well,
so
I'll tell you this,
I think
Karen.
This was really,
as far as I'm concerned, you're welcome to call anytime. It's always a pleasure to have you on, and you always ask great questions. So call back anytime, okay?
Thank you. And thank you so much, Joe. And have a good rest of the show. It's amazing.
Thank you. And by the way, call back to let me know how this works out, okay? I want to know what's going on. Okay.
I will.
All right.
I'm going to dig into this. Okay,
right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Toll free 1-833-563-4247. That is toll free in North America, and of course worldwide using the calling app of your choice. Always great to hear from Karen. HairBoutique.com. Check her out online. That was a great question. I'm very interested in that subject, and if I can find some time in my life, I will try to dig up some more of that information that I was talking about. And I might even try to investigate some of these online. I can't find the best online pharmacy because that would involve ordering stuff from all, and that's impossible for one person to do. But I might try to come up with a way to do some sort of investigation to get some information about some of these different online pharmacies, because I don't know, maybe I can uncover something based on, I can ask some simple questions, not knowing if the person will actually know the answers, because it's probably, as I flesh this out live on the show, I'm thinking about who I'd be talking to. It'd probably be just some sort of call center person that may not even understand, the field that they're actually working in. So who knows? But it would be interesting to learn more about it. I wish I had time. Maybe I'll make time to dig into that. We'll see. But yeah, give me a call. 1-833-563-4247. The number is right down here in the corner of the screen if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or wherever else I've placed the program. Give me a call. Let's talk about hair transplant surgery. Let's talk about hair loss. Let's talk about your story. Are you about to have surgery this week and you have questions, or maybe you're not quite sure about how you feel about it? Are you having the jitters? Give me a call. Let's talk about that. In the meantime, let's go to the chat room. Let's see. Any questions? How high a priority are lateral humps if they're gone? That's Milk Drinker. Well, you mean reestablishing them. So if you don't have any lateral humps or parietal humps, as they're called, they're not really a priority when it comes to when it comes to hair transplant surgery, because that's just part of the placement. And there's nothing special about recreating them. They're usually going in the same direction as the rest of the hair that would have been in that area. But if you are a Norwood 6 where the parietal humps are missing, or even a Norwood 7, that area is just being filled in regardless of how those humps would have looked. So you don't actually get those back. It's just a carpet bombing of the entire area, and the region where those parietal humps would have been is also included in that process. So parietal humps is just the hair on top of your scalp that hasn't fallen out, and it just happens to be in that pattern where you have those two humps. So Hope that makes sense. Let's see, Sergey. We need Rob to call the show and tell us about his massive BHT with Dr. Umar. I'd like to hear about that. Let's see. People in this forum keep saying someone wouldn't be able to fill the humps in the hairline in one pass because of a risk of over harvesting, but it's okay to do in 2 passes. Makes no sense to me. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. I need some context. But anyway, let's see what we got here. Matteo was giddy about his hair. Yeah, you could tell. You could tell he was happy about his hair. And that's also, I meant to mention that. Really happy for the guy. Really happy for anyone that's had a good hair transplant and is happy. I can't say that about these guys that are going to really cheap, bad places and coming back and saying, I'm happy with my hair, and it looks like crap. I'm not happy for them because they won't be happy in the future, but more importantly, they're lowering the bar for what other people should look for. Because if you don't know anything about hair restoration, you just know you're losing your hair and you want your hair back yesterday, you're going to see this guy that says, I went someplace and paid $1,000 and got a full head of hair back. Obviously not really. And he's got this hairline that looks terrible. You might not realize it. You just see this big coif of hair and like, yeah, I want that too. And the next thing you know, you're on your way to wherever this guy went, and you two it perpetuates more bad work. That's what I'm saying. So anyway, I got off on a tangent there. I have a question. If you have time to answer, do the extra grafts required to fill in a strip scar cancel out the benefit of doing strip for additional grafts? Try to understand that question. Do the extra grafts required to fill in the strip scar cancel out the benefit of doing strip for additional grafts? No, I don't think so. But it depends on how. Sorry, I think I understand your question. I don't think so, because to fill in a strip scar, if that's something that is necessary, then it's not a lot of grafts, and maybe a couple hundred grafts using FUE. It's actually no, yeah. I don't think it cancels it out. You have a good big, a nice big strip, not too big, maybe a second one to really address the areas of loss if you have a lot of loss, and then an FUE procedure to kind of fill in that donor scar if it's widened, or even if it's not widened. Like, you don't, like, guys that have had a good strip, they got a good strip scar, they still have gone into, I know a lot of people have done this, they'll still try to fill it in with some grafts via FUE just to make it as good as possible and then move on. Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't negate it at all. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just replaying that question, and I think I answered it. But yeah, I mean, that's one way to do things. Of course, FUE is fine, starting off the bat for a lot of people. But if someone wants to do that, take that route to do a few good strips and then fill it in later on, yeah, that's fine. And it doesn't negate the benefit of strip. Let's see. Looks good, but everyone has to do their research. He probably doesn't even know better about tempo points. Maybe talking about the comedian Matteo Lane. See, I used about 150 grafts to fill a strip scar, which obtained 2,000 grafts. Good trade-off. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Benny. Benny G just answered that. That's good. I understand the question correctly. Good. Okay. And you're welcome. Does punch size affect lifetime donor supply? Yes, it does. Yeah, absolutely. And not so much the physical supply, but remember, this is all about aesthetics. So does punch size affect the aesthetics of a donor region over time sooner than if a smaller punch was used? That's the actual question, and the answer is yes. So if you have a bunch of larger punctate wounds that turn into scars, from a larger punch, then your donor area will have a look of depletion, even though it might not be depleted, sooner than had there been a smaller punch to use, because the scar tissue will be more easily seen even if the hair isn't, really short. So yeah, it does matter. Okay, so my hair is long despite being a Norwood 5. Okay, good for you. My hair is curly. I have asked for an unshaven procedure. If I ask the hairdresser to what grade or length can I cut my hair before going for my procedure, don't let your clinic do any sort of haircut for your hair before your surgery. Don't get a special haircut. Don't try to do your clinic any favors, because you are robbing the clinic of the ability to see how you wear your hair, how your hair behaves naturally, and it's more difficult to properly gauge the overall procedure if a patient comes in with a short haircut versus their natural hair length, and letting the clinic cut the hair the way that they want to make it ideal for their needs for the surgery. So I hope that made sense. Let's see. And then you asked, and this is Andrew Vernon. Then you said, my hair is, if I ask a hairdresser, no, wait, there's another question. Yeah, that was it. That was all of your stuff. Okay. Do people with fair skin and thus less scalp to scar color contrast manage to get more grafts without aesthetically damaging the donor? Yes. Don't ask me for percentages. I can't give that to you, but yeah, that's logical. See, yeah. Okay, that's it. All right, not a lot of questions going on. I'm going to give you guys a chance to call in. It's 4:03 Pacific time right now. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to 4:05. The number is toll-free in North America, 1-833-563-4247. I will answer your questions about hair loss, hair restoration surgery, current and future treatments. And you can also use the calling app of your choice to call worldwide. Again, it's 1-833-563-4247. Rob Hellner says, Joe, does finasteride affect beard hair on the head in a good way or bad? That's a great question. I think that your doctor recommends not taking finasteride if you've had a body hair transplant. I think I remember something about that. So according to your doctor, the answer is yes, if I understand that correctly. I don't know, to be honest with you, from my own personal experience, because there aren't a lot of people with beard hair transplants talking about how finasteride has affected their growth. And if they are, I don't even know if they know that, how it's affecting their growth. So, ultimately, the best way to find out is to be on finasteride. Actually, to not even be on finasteride, to have a beard hair transplant, let it grow to its full result after a year to year and a half. And whether you're happy with it or not, it's not the point. But then start taking finasteride and see if the outcome changes. See if the result thins over the next year or 2 years. It's not an easy experiment to conduct. So I hope that makes sense. How big an issue is confluence of scarring and FUE? Well, it depends again on punch size. It depends on punch extraction density. In other words, how close the extractions are to each other. Also, punch size can also affect that. And also the physiology of the patient. Today, I don't think it's much of an issue because we got more clinics that understand the homogenization need for the donor area when doing extractions. In other words, not taking everything from one concentrated area, which is stupid. So it's not so much of an issue. But to say that there's not an effect on the scalp due to the entire donor region having some sort of scarring, whether it's visible or not, I think that's naive. Because it does affect things. It does distort angles a little bit here and there. I can't say that it's enough to cause a problem for surgery. Dr. Merceneau from Dr. Sever, actually, from Hattigan Hair was saying that he doesn't see it being an issue when it comes to subsequent surgeries after an FUE. So, different clinics will have different opinions on it, but I don't think it's debatable that it does affect the scalp on some level. Hope that helps. Any other questions? Okay, Sergey says finasteride does not make beard follicles miniaturize. It hasn't been observed, so it shouldn't cause any loss of beard grafts implanted on the scalp. I can't say that's 100% true. I'm not going to debate it. Like, I don't know. I do know that body hair in general is expected to not be as, what's the word I'm looking for? Not as strong while on finasteride. And I say that only because I know too many people that have said that their chest hair doesn't grow as long or it's not as thick. But I don't know about beard hair. One of those things I don't know about. But thank you for your comment, Sergey. Love having you around, buddy. Let's see. All in all, has the rise of FUE been a negative for the world of hair transplants? Yes, it's a huge negative. Only because it has lowered the bar for entry into the industry as a clinic. You don't need nearly as many staff. You don't need nearly as much equipment. You don't need nearly as much training. And so it is a single reason why the state of the industry as a whole has declined. Now, with that said, FUE has been, in general, a godsend for a lot of people. 15 years ago, not so much. But it was a very helpful procedure for a small minority many years ago when the first few doctors that picked it up got good enough with it to where they were getting some decent results. It's been great for repair patients of strip surgeries. It's also been okay for repair patients of other FUE surgeries, but nothing can be done worse to a donor area than a bad FUE. Ray Woods himself told me, Ray Woods, the inventor, the father of modern day FUE hair transplant surgery, told me himself at dinner that a bad FUE is far worse than a bad strip. And this is the guy that invented modern day FUE to avoid strip surgery and to deal with repairing strip surgery. So it's I think it's a much bigger negative in the world than it is a positive. But I'm certainly not going to discredit its positive impact, not in the least. It's a fantastic procedure if done correctly. The problem is that far too many clinics are not doing it correctly. There are far more people being harmed today that just today, literally Monday, June 12th, 2023, more people are being harmed today by a bad FUE surgery than a year's worth of bad strip surgery in its heyday. That's the way I look at it. And no, I don't have the numbers to back it up, but when you look at the number of clinics today versus 15 years ago, it's crazy. So it's a huge imbalance. That's my take on that. All right, so that's it, guys. No phone calls. You've had more than 2 minutes, so I'm signing off. I got stuff to do. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Karen. Why did I say Heather? Karen, thanks for the call. I appreciate that. Guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed this short live stream reaction video. Look up Matteo Lane. He's a good comic. He's out there a little bit, but he's witty. I like him. I like his style, and I think he's funny. And yeah, let me know in the comment section if you're watching the replay what you think of this video. Don't forget to like this video if you thought it was funny, entertaining, helpful, or all of the above. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for all notifications. Got more stuff coming your way. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.